Hi everyone, it's Majori here from the Punk Priestess, and welcome to the forecast for September 2025, where we will be going over the astrology and tarot of the month. So this month is insane, just to put it lightly. Um, we have eclipse season coming up strong, coming up, yeah, we're having this energy start the first week of September, and we're going to be talking a lot about Virgo energy. Make sure that you're subscribing to my Substack because I am doing a new series about Jafra Boskart's astrology and tarot infused zodiac art. So make sure that you are a paid subscriber to get a lot of insight into the mythology, the cosmicology, tarot, divination, all the things when it comes to the zodiac sign. So we're going to be breaking those down every single month. But there is definitely a lot of focus this year on the Hermit. And if you've been subscribing for a while, I've been talking a lot about the Hermit tarot card because this is the tarot card of the year and it is a very Virgo-oriented year. But we're going to break it down. We're going to start with the astrology first, go into the tarot. I have a new deck I'm really excited to use in this reading. I just filmed an unboxing video for it yesterday, so that's going to be up on my Substack and on my YouTube next week, so look out for that. And the deck is Tarot Emblemata by Natasha Rowland, one of my friends and favorite deck creators. So we're going to be using a couple of the cards today in this reading. But we're going to talk about retrogrades as well. So we have a lot of planets going retrograde. A lot of planets currently are retrograde. It's very retrograde heavy. And September kind of feels like this month of contemplation. It's like, okay, wow, what the fuck? What the fuck was 2025? And what can we do to really just wrap our head around all the chaos that has happened collectively as well as personally in our lives? I think this year has been like a stop and go. Like there's just been a lot of speed with like a lot of planets in Aries, but then there's also been a lot of well, like confusion. Like, what do I do? Do I just absorb or do I, act? And I think September is going to really be a month where a lot of people are doing a lot of like undoing. And this could also be connected to the Pisces eclipse energy. And Pisces is the opposite sign of Virgo. So Pisces is the sign of undoing, self-undoing. So I think a lot of people are kind of really coming to terms with their role, with their play, like not only in 2025, but this year. And even contemplating what the last eclipse season brought into our lives back in March. And, eclipses work usually in 6 month increments. So, it's breaking the year in half with these eclipses. So, really contemplating what has come through since March in your life, what has transpired, and where are you today? So, it kind of feels like a lot of us are maybe just feeling like we're catching up. It's like ran a race and now we gotta go through, we just went through the finish line. And now we're like stretching, we're drinking our water, we're calming down, we're sitting down as we're in Virgo season and contemplating how the race has gone so far. But just knowing that the track season or, the track meet, I was a track star. So this is kind of the analogy I like to use for a lot of astrology, but, it's just kind of like the meet's not over yet. We still have another race to run, and we have to prepare ourselves for to get back out on the track. And it's kind of like the cycle of life, But I think this eclipse season, it's triggering us for all the right reasons, but it's also we can no longer make excuses for our own behavior or for other people's behavior. Like there's so much, like I think the Saturn and Neptune and Aries energy just push so much out into the collective since March that there's no way we can just unsee that. We can't just shove it out of our consciousness, shove it out of our mind, and be like, okay, I don't know if I want to consider that. I don't know if I want to partake in that. It's like, no, there's no going back. We've seen so much has been revealed, so much has been brought to light that we just have to contemplate what we want to do with that information. I think a lot of things too, hopefully we can really come to this collective, reasoning of, trying to find solution instead of, again, there's no longer making excuses. Like Virgo, it's like we're not making excuses anymore. We're going to solve problems. We're going to get to the nitty-gritty of the details and try to find a solution. Be pragmatic about it, be disciplined about it, be discerning about it, and that's going to be how we try to move forward. So, just going over some of the transits here. So, on September 1st, we have Saturn retrograde leaving Aries and moving into Pisces. So, this is the last time that Saturn is going to be in Pisces for the next 30 years. And it's going to be in Pisces until February of next year. So we have like another 6 more months of this energy. It's kind of like the last hurrah, the last stretch. But hopefully, a lot of this can just, come to some type of, I guess, like reasoning really is the word. Like, we really need to, contemplate on what has unfolded and really try to make sense of it, trying to make sense of the chaos. And, I think, I just feel like, let's just say, people who have voted against themselves in this country, maybe this is a moment where they have a come to Jesus moment. And, Pisces is Jesus energy, like, really kind of like, holy shit, what have I done to not only myself, but my family, but, other people. Like, I think there's going to be kind of this moment of reckoning. It's very much judgment, like energy unfolding here. So we have Saturn leaving Aries, moving into Pisces, which is a little bit of a pause. It's like a pause, and I think a time to like restructure, regroup, do some healing, and like rest up before we have to get back on the battlefield come uh February. But and then we're like full force into Aries until 2028 until it goes into Taurus. So there's going to be some time here with Saturn and Aries, but I think it's kind of giving us some time to like undo, reflect, reevaluate, like the retrograde R words, reconsider choices that were made, a year ago. And it's like, well, how do we get here? Well, we have to we have to like really do a little bit of soul searching as to how and why. We also have Mercury entering Virgo here the next day on the 2nd. So I think this is good for a lot of like mental reconstructing and finding like a lot of mental like discipline. I think this is going to be very helpful and useful for really trying to make sense of some things and finding some type of structure. And then we have Uranus retrograding in Gemini. So this will be at 1 degrees and 28 minutes. So, Uranus is still in the early stages of Uranus is still in the early stages of Gemini, and it's going to go back into Taurus next month. But in the meantime, this is going to be a little bit of chaos, and this is the 6th of September. So like the first week of September is really heavy. And then we have on the 7th of September, we have our full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees and 23 minutes. So it's very, very comfortable in Pisces. It's like right in the center of the sign. And I think there's just no hiding here. It's kind of like we can no longer have this apathy. Like it really is, are you going to do something or you're going to complain? Are you going to just wallow in despair and be like, woe is me, or feel helpless? Or are you going to find a way to use that Mercury in Virgo and, gather up your tools, gather up your mental arsenals and, really do something with your mental power and your words. So there's no more woe is me. There's no more like, well, what do I do or how or, it's just an excuse to not be involved in this moment, in this kind of crisis that we're in. You can feel the crisis. You can feel like the walls closing in. And it's just like, are we serious? Like, is this still happening? Yesterday in this country, we had a school shooting in Minnesota at a church, at a Catholic school, and the kids were in church. And, it's just like, how is this still happening? How has nothing been done? And, just you feel it. You feel this impending, like, vortex. It's like you're being sucked into a black hole, and you're like, well, what can be done? And it's like, there's solution, but no one wants to enact that solution for, all these excuses. And there's just going to have to be some new policy and some new strategy and restructuring that takes place. And hopefully these eclipses can do that in certain like areas of our lives. And we have Vesta entering Sagittarius, so we have the asteroids pushing forward. And I like Vesta in Sagittarius. It feels very warrior-esque. It feels very much like we're going to do something. We're going to actually find a little bit more oomph and passion and excitement and bravery to kind of push ourselves out into the collective and doing something. So I like Vesta entering Sagittarius on the 13th. And then we have on the 18th Mercury entering Libra. So that's a quick Mercury cycle because there's no retrograde happening right now. So very quick. So let's kind of see the togetherness. It's like ideas get presented, strategy gets talked about, and then we have to bring it to the collective and make some type of solid, camaraderie. I can't say it right now. But I think it's this, the timing, there seems like there's a lot of quickness happening here. It's just like no more BS. Let's just get to, finding some solution. We have here then on the 21st or on the 19th, we have Venus entering Virgo, which feels, like finally. I think there's just like a lot of like more groundedness kind of coming together, especially with like we're kind of in this like now we're kind of getting back to like earthy water where we've been in like a lot of air and fire. So, it does kind of feel like groundedness, but we want to make sure that we're not falling into complacency. We're not falling into the same traps. And that's kind of why we need a little bit of some fire to kind of push us and like reset us out of some traps that we've been in the past. But I hope there can be, more reasonable conversations, just more togetherness and putting away like the ego. We have here that on the 21st, a partial new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, and that's at 29 degrees and 5 minutes. So this is a very interesting moon eclipse because like a week ago, we had a new moon in Virgo. And then now we have our second new moon in Virgo. So this happens once a year. We have two moons in the same zodiac sign. Either new moon or full moon. Like last year it was Capricorn. So this is interesting how, these eclipses are really playing a part. And this is also kind of mirroring too the eclipses in Virgo that happened back in March. So again, thinking about that 6 month cycle, what has unfolded. And also, we're at 29 degrees here. So, there is something, the chapter's closing, collectively, personally, energetically, in our lives. And I think by the 21st, we'll, feel that. And maybe there can be some resolve and some healing and a little bit of peace with it. We have Mars entering Scorpio the next day. So this, like, it's interesting. It's like, there's no rest for the wicked this month. It's like kind of like a slinky. It's like going, out and then retracting. It's just going in and out. And I feel like that's how this feels. It's like we have a moment to take a breath and then we're back up in battle. We're back up in arms. And then Libra season starts on the 22nd this year. So, it's like engagement, peace, strategy, action. Like, that cycle is just kind of playing back and forth throughout this month. And it's just going to be a little bit like a roller coaster ride. It's like going to be an up and downward of emotions. It's going to be chaos. But I also think there's going to be some moments of immense clarity and feelings of, groundedness and togetherness and solidarity. And there's going to be moments where it's like, I have to be the own sovereign of my story. I have to fight for, my own life. I have to engage. And then it's like, okay, we'll strategize. We'll take a drink of water. Okay, now we're back on the battlefield. So it's just like a lot of like back and forth, with like a lot of polarizing energy. But it's trying to ground itself, and it's like, I think this is when we can slowly start seeing some progress in insightful action being taken place. And it really just contemplates on it on what the past 6 months have taught us. The past 6 months has been our teacher. And Virgo, September, it's back to school energy and we're back in the classroom. There's so many mundane transits here. I'm not going to go over them, right now, but this will be available on my Substack for you to look at. And I'm going to try to touch on some of these when I do my lunar reports. So look out for that next month. I always do a breakdown of every new moon and full moon for the month. So. September's huge. October is it's kind of chill compared to everything going on with um with September. So just kind of like prepare for that. But yeah, we're gonna get into the tarot here. So I'm gonna have every single transit listed for September on my Substack as always. So look forward to that. But yeah, I feel like the intensity energetically. So you might be feeling it too. Let's see what the cards have to say. I need to take a sip of water because I feel like a little riled up because that's just the vibe. That's the vibe for September. Like I said, no rest for the wicked. All right. So we're just gonna kind of dive in, and I'm gonna start with the main energy here. I have a lot of decks on this desk, so we're gonna just kind of slowly pull them out. All right. Try to finish up this Florida water here. I need to start making my own again. I used to make my own a couple years ago and I missed that process. That might be something I do during Virgo season. All right. Ooh, let's ground. So let's hold some smoky quartz. Got my huge fistful of smoky quartz. I have a lot of smoky quartz on the desk. I also have this piece of smoky quartz. I just taught a 2-week series in person in the Detroit area on crystals. So I'm very much in that vibe. And I realized as I was packing these crystals for the class or the presentations, I'm like, ooh, it's been a while since I dusted some of these. So it's been good to kind of do some cleansing and reorganizing. And just to be infused with some of the crystal magic. I love it. That's another thing too. I'm going to start posting a little bit about crystals. This is probably going to be for paid subscribers as well. So definitely, there's been a lot more content on my Substack. I try to do a couple posts a week, but my channel, my subscribers are growing, so that is going to include a little bit more of an inclusive community. So make sure that you're subscribing, or if you feel called to be a paid subscriber, it's only $6 a month. So feel free to support your girl. All right, let's start with the main energy here. September. Not what I want to see. All right, let's put an oracle card before we reveal this little vibe that I'm not too happy about, but I'm also not surprised. Whew, whew, whew. Okay, all right. This is what I have here. I have the Five of Pentacles upright. We don't love to see it. It's probably one of my least favorite cards, honestly. And then we have stability. So it's like, what in the duality is this? What is the in the duality is going on here? So with the Five of Pentacles showing up, this is really, I think, showing us that there's so much contamination, there's so much rotten fruit in the garden, there's so much vindictiveness and rot that we really need to address it. There's no longer this, okay, we're going to ignore it because with the Five of Pentacles, the rotten fruit is contaminating the garden. Like all the healthy foliage and produce and, greenery, it's now getting influenced by this rot. And, you can think about this, like collectively, politically. But it's also like where in your life too do you need to kind of clear your garden and really just get this rotten fruit out? Is this relationships? Is this friendships? Is this clutter in your home? You're like, I need to get this stuff out and maybe donate it to Goodwill and give it a second life with someone else. Or, maybe it's like me, I had to like dust off my crystals. Like, when's the last time I did this? Like they're but it's not just one crystal, it was like all of them were getting dusty. So, it kind of it stretches. But I think the Five of Pentacles is really telling us like we can no longer avoid this rot. It's going to continue to be here. It's continue to grow and contaminate and influence and have influence until we decide to do something about it. Um, and I think, we have to not be afraid. We kind of have to put our ego aside to like really make some change in our lives or collectively or politically, whatever it is, to get this rot out of the collective, out of the system. There's just and we feel it. I mean, this can definitely be, political in this country. You just feel like there's been this takeover of rot, but we have to not let the rot be stable. We have to find a way to build stability in our own lives as the rot is still continuing. And um, this is thinking about, I guess this I kind of will use a little bit more of another metaphor with like gardening and nature. Like, I'm a huge house plant collector. I have like 80 house plants right now. And when I was gone for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks on my trips, on my travels, it was really hot and humid. And this really made the soil damp and attracted those little gnats that are so annoying. And it went from like one plant to another. So I had to have the soil dry out. I had like all these gnat traps and everything, and I had the solution. I was able to clear most of it, but I had to repot like 20 of my plants and give them fresh soil and everything. And that helped stabilize the growth of the plant and stabilize the plant, but it brought stability to other plants because they were kind of shielded or rid of the gnats, and the gnats were no longer, infiltrating my plants in my house. And now I don't really have any gnats at all, and that's been nice the past 2 weeks. We'll see if that continues, but it's just a very humid summer here. But we have to try to find stability within our own selves. Um, and how can we do this? How do we find stability? It's going to look different for everyone. So let's just talk about the obvious here. So I think what one thing is going to be coming through is a lack of financial stability with the Pentacles, the Five of Pentacles coming in, because this is traditionally the card of poverty. So one way that, and this is like due to the tariffs. Like I've been seeing this so much too, and it's so frustrating for small businesses, especially like within the metaphysical witchy community. So many small businesses refusing to, ship to the US anymore because of the tariffs and because it's costing them so much on their bottom line. And I understand it. I'm like, don't, get yourself in debt to try to, ship here. But then they're losing money from not having American customers, and it's just a whole mess all around. So there's a lot of missing out. But I think there's going to be a lot of financial suffering unfolding with the Five of Pentacles. But we have to find, there's a lack of financial stability coming, but then we have to find stability and groundedness in other ways. And how can we do this is by really kind of going back to simplicity. This is kind of a Taurus mentality. It's like the frugality of Taurus, or it's like really the sheer kind of it can be hypochondria, but it can also be like hypersensitivity to spending with the earth signs, especially with Virgo. Like Virgo is like a very, very frugal sign as well. And they're very like obsessed with money. And I think that we're gonna have to really hold back on a lot of spending and to have more stability. And it's like, okay, you know what? I can't buy anything extra. I'm just going to have to make sure I have like food on the table and I'm able to pay my bills and I'm able to maybe have a little bit of extra for some backstock in my home. You know, that's kind of like where it's really down to the basics, I feel, with this energy. And it's kind of like too, if this fruit was gonna like continue to rot and contaminate the garden with disease and its infestation, we have to salvage as much of the healthy fruit and produce that we can and the healthy plants that we can and stabilize those so that we can continue to survive. There's also a sense of stability where we're going to have to just come to our center. And this could be like, you know what? I need to meditate. I need to turn off, my TV, not go on my phone, or I need to find stability in reading a fantasy novel. I just finished Fourth Wing, so I'm like reading that trilogy right now. But it's just kind of like we need to find some type of escape. We have to find some type of simplicity to kind of counteract the rot that's trying to erode. And it's by design. It's by design because it wants us to feel insecure. But what we need to remember is that our ancestors have gone through difficult times. They also have been, thinking of the Cold War, thinking of, the Civil War, whatever, how long your family's been here, World War II, there's just been so many times where in order to prevent this rot from infiltrating our own lives, we have to find stability in small ways. And I think a lot of this is like shielding ourselves, protecting what we can and shielding ourselves um, from the chaos. But we don't want to find stability in the chaos. That's what they want to. They want us to normalize. Some people are already in that mode. They normalize fear. They've been, it's apathy. They feel helpless. It's they've been conditioned. And it's like, we can't normalize this behavior anymore. It should never have been normalized, what's going on in many different directions. All right, let's kind of pull some more cards here. Okay. Give our little bit of our stop and go here. I have the Knight of Wands upright. I have the King of Cups reversed. And then I have the Aquarius energy. So this is good. Maybe our King of Cups is really the end of, our little our orange peel, but I do think this really could be like a king is falling, and we'll see this in what directions. Um, or people have been on a pedestal, losing their place, culturally, collectively, politically. But there is a call to arms and a call to action. This might be Vesta in Sagittarius. Like we're really feeling the urge to fight. We're really feeling the urge to act out. And we kind of maybe need to stabilize the fire so we don't have it be reckless. We're channeling it, but we need to make sure we channel it in the right directions. But, we need some action. And I like this showing up. I feel like the Knight of Wands it's purposeful action in many times, but it is a little bit in the moment. It's not really, there's no premeditation. It's just kind of acting on impulse and acting on instinct. There could be some violence, with this too, because of the impulsivity, of the lack of forethought. But at least things are happening, and at least movement is happening. Um, but there is a fall of grace for someone, or people having a change of heart. As and some people need to learn the hard way because they refuse to do the work to actually learn the right way. And I think a lot of this could be a change of allegiance. And that's been the Sabian symbols. If you've been kind of paying attention to my Substack, that's a lot of the Sabian symbols this year with the transits is a change of allegiance for many people. And that's already happening collectively. But I think this could really be maybe, the end of Trump and he dies, or the end of, some political figure or someone of influence. And maybe it's not as mourned as people thought it would be. But whatever it is, there is some progress happening. And, like Aquarius, it's going to move forward. Aquarius is the sign of the future. It's the alien. It's going to be very unique. It's going to be very original. Aquarius does not wait for anyone. And I like the imagery of this card because it's kind of like snapping, the finger, and it could be like lightning. It's just like energy is happening. And I think this is kind of a wake-up call for people to really, move forward into the future. Like these cards are working together, but maybe it is someone or some entity, some energy, people who have held the collective back and have been working against progress have lost the battle, have are no longer in the way. And so now things can really move forward and it's like all speed ahead. But Aquarius, it is really it's taking flight, the collective being able to take flight. Like Aquarius is the people and it's organization, it's groups. It's community. And I think that's how we stabilize ourselves with the contamination and the rot. But if he dies, which I think his time is soon, I said this back in January, I was like, he doesn't have 2 years. So, but I think, from what we've been seeing collectively, it's his health is not good. Um, and I think this is going to be, he's someone who has held us back so much, like, and it's just going to be once he's out, we'll see what unfolds. But I think this is going to give people an opportunity to really kind of wake up from the spell or to continue fighting at um, in a stronger sense, to get things, back in alignment, again, and to make things better and to kind of, dismantle some of this impression. Um, but I think this is good. It's kind of like a new page is turning. We're opening up a new door, and people, entities, energy. Because like it is an entity. This energy. White supremacy is like it's an entity too. It's like dark magic. It's evil. But there's just a lot of this that really, has been holding people back. And even, white people back. They don't see that yet, but or maybe they do, but it's held everyone back. But this energy is kind of like eating itself. But I think this is kind of saying like you can try to, kill us of toxins. You can try to spread animosity and fear and death and hatred, but we will remain stable and secure in ourselves. We will fight and do something, and the future will continue to move forward. There's no going back in time. We have to push forward, and we will continue to move forward. But sometimes we need certain people to fall who have been in the way to get out of the way. And, you know, the age of Aquarius will outlive Trump. So just think of that and his people. We have 20 more years of this. Pluto just got into Aquarius. So this is the new deck here that I have. Okay, this is interesting. All right, so I have here the Queen of Pentacles. This is a very intense reading. I have the Queen of Pentacles upright, and then I have the Three of Wands reversed. And it's interesting because this card is this deck is was originally published in I think it was like 1533 or maybe like 1555, something like that. I forgot. But I know it's like the 1500s. Um and it's in French and then it's broken down in English, but it says here for the Queen of Pentacles, wisdom is of greater force than destiny. I love that. I think this is a really interesting card. And I was thinking about this yesterday a lot. I was thinking about it. Actually, I woke up this morning with this thought, and I was like, I cannot wait for matriarchy. I'm like, can it get here sooner than later so I can, like, my life, in my lifetime, I can experience more of it. But I think that's really what's coming outside of this. Like, the patriarchy is eating itself. And it's dying. It's holding on for dear life. Everything that they're doing is they're holding on for dear life. And we have this like Queen of Pentacles, which always comes off as extremely, extremely feminine, extremely matriarchal. And I think it's kind of up to, our wisdom is going to be what gets us out of this mess. And maybe it's this divine feminine wisdom, this call back to nature. But I feel like, is this Kamala being, we'll see what happens if the lawsuit's going on. Because I do think the election was manipulated and stolen from her. And I think too, this is kind of, is she coming back on the scene? I know her book tour starts. So there can be, some energy about that, but like what other feminine energy is really rising? We also have the Three of Wands. And this is appearing together upon the sea, a sign of good luck. So, it's reversed. I don't like this reversed, but I think this is a thought of how can we garner this feminine, very, very secure and stable and devoted and mature energy um of the divine feminine and pushing it out. But it's also, are people, still going to work together to get this out into the future, out into the world? And that's some reluctance with the Three of Wands here. So it's like, what's next? What do we do? I think that's part of this conversation that we're going to have with Mercury and Virgo and Venus and Virgo. We're going to all have to find a way to work together. Virgo's very feminine energy. So I do think there is going to be like some female collective attention happening when it comes to power. So let's see what transpires. But it is kind of like this, oppressed female energy really finding its space. And this can be back to like reproductive rights too, kind of like, on the scene and conversation around that. But it pretty much is, you can suppress feminine energy, especially when we all come from women, especially when the earth is tied to women. You can't suppress it. And it's like, we've seen how far, like, patriarchy is not natural. We really should be like ruled with matriarchy. That's how it's naturally supposed to be, because women are the carriers and the barriers of life, and nature, which sustains us. And when we go against that divine order, that's when problems happen. And so we have to figure out a way to restructure. But, it's just kind of like, what solutions do you want? We see that, white men in power has gotten us anywhere, has gotten us nowhere. And it's not working. The same, broken bell, the broken system is not working. What else can we bring in? And we need, the solution's been in front of us the entire time. We need strong feminine energy to unfold and take its space and lead differently, do things differently. Um, but it's still this battle because some people are just so stuck in the past and behind. Also, a lot of people are in a cult, so they don't know what's best for them right now. They're gonna start waking up once this leader dies. This person, not even a leader, this person dies. But it's interesting, the fall of the patriarchy and the rise of the matriarchy. It's already unfolding. Women are the most educated right now, as well as we just made so many strides and have really found purpose in so many ways outside of motherhood too. But it's just kind of like we got to do things differently if we want different results. If we want things better, we have to have different perspectives, and we have to find a way to all move forward together and see like a better vision. And I just think there's still some block. There's still some stuckness. Maybe it's the retrogrades, but there's, it's kind of like we have to fight for a new vision. And that is what there's a lot of youth with Aquarius. I'm sensing like youth here. And there's some hunger. There's just some need for change and advocacy. And I think that's what, we have to leave some people behind. Some people are going to be left behind. Some people already are left behind. And that might be okay. I'm just like, let people be miserable. Let people live, in poverty and in hatred. And, it's maybe you don't want them in your community. They can make their own, but they're going to be miserable. But misery loves company. But I think that there's definitely some solution here. I think there's definitely a lot of news that's going to come out that has, I think I said it was going to take 6 months to a year for people to really see the truth. And I think these retrogrades, especially, some of the signs going back to Pisces where they were, at this time last year, there's going to be a lot of illumination unfolding, but there's still, some stubbornness, like, with the Three of Wands reverse. I don't want to see this reverse, but I feel like, people are going to progress no matter what. We can't go back to the way things once were, and we refuse to, no matter how far they try to take us. It's just not going to happen. Too much progress has been made. So, yeah, it's just, the double-edged sword here with the Two of Swords and the Eight of Pentacles reversed. We have our Two of Swords upright, our Eight of Pentacles reversed. It's just it's a lack of, hard work. There's just like this double-edged sword. It's like we can either, really build something new and with integrity and, do the right thing, or we can stay stuck in our ways and complacent and nothing changes. And the rot, the Five of Pentacles just consumes us. And I just feel like there's so many people we just need to get out. I mean, I think this could be the Supreme Court. It's just there's so much dead energy that is just trying to hold us back. And that's why we need youth. That's why we need, terms. That's why we need to dismantle some of these structures. And that's what Pluto in Aquarius is going to do. Pluto in Aquarius was, the restructuring of this country 250 years ago. And now we're going through the Pluto return and we're destructuring these systems, and we need to create new ones. But it's going to take some time. But I feel like we just have to move in a different direction. But we don't have to start, necessarily 100% from scratch. We just have to evolve in new and modern ways. And we need to get fresh new people in, who have the stamina, who have the energy, who have the ideas, and who are progressive. But there's just this lack of, I think, older, if it's people set in their ways, older generations just not wanting to do that, but they're losing out on what they can have. So there's some frustration here. But I think everyone knows the answer and the solution, but there's just it's frustrating because we see the change, but and what needs to be done, and then it's like no one wants to do it. And we're seeing this with the gun laws and violence and everything. It's like time and time again, the same story is spinning, but nothing is being done. And it's just, yeah, it's gonna be like a tug of war. It's gonna be an up and down, like, roller coaster of emotions. And it's like, feeling really good in solution, and then it's like we're retreating. We're going back and forth, back and forth. But I think slowly we're gonna make a little bit more progress. But there's gonna be some volatile energy with the Knight of Wands. There's gonna be some recklessness. But I think we need more recklessness. I think we need a little bit more people not giving a crap and, F decorum. These are fighting times right now before it's too late. I have so much duality here with this spread, and that's just how this month feels. Engaging, disengaging, moving, 10 steps forward, going 3 steps back. It's just like I said, the slinky, like the retracting, the extracting. I have here the Five of Wands reverse, and I have the Princess of Wands or the Page of Wands. So, I think I actually like this. I think that there is ultimately, the fire is going to feed, life. It's going to engage. It's going to burn. And, I think we need to use our rage mindfully. I think too, it's just we have our knight, we have our page, and the Five of Wands is kind of like getting off the battlefield a little bit. It's like, a little bit like, you know what? If I continue to fight and engage, it's not going to go anywhere. So we might as well just put this fire somewhere useful and stabilize it and put it in a new direction. And that's, we're seeing Gavin Newsom do that, which is great. We're seeing people like in, Chicago, like we're seeing, people being like, you know what, let's actually do something different. And I think there's a lot of fresh ideas, but it's not really grounded, but hopefully the Virgo energy can really, the Venus and Virgo can kind of bring that together. I also think in your own lives too, I know this kind of sounds very collective, as a collective reading. But I think as well, it's like, how have you been holding yourself back? And what do you really need to just throw your heart into and really get serious if you want to see something come to fruition? And sometimes it's like, okay, I've had these goals and I keep saying I'm going to do this, but I haven't put the energy behind it to do it. It's a little bit of a call out for myself for something I'm trying to do, but I know that September is really going to be the month I'm going to really like start on something. But there's this, it's going to be very much project building too, but it's really like learning your battles, picking your battles. This seems like there's a lot of vitality, but it's just really there's a lot of determination here. There's a lot of determination. There's like new things that want to evolve and come into fruition. But it just kind of seems like, we might have to exhaust the opponent a little bit or exhaust parts of ourselves to get things, in motion. I'm going to end here with some cards, some color oracle cards here. Okay, this is cool. So, I have here dark blue, and then I have brown. So, this is from the Color Vision Oracle deck, one of my favorite decks that I own by Moon Nectar Apothecary. Um, and we are going to read about dark blue first. So, let's see here. Let's kind of paraphrase some of this. Okay. So dark blue, very beautiful. There's a lot of blue here in the spread. So this is the root and the throat chakra. It's mystery, subconscious realms, the unconscious, psyche, shadow, something hidden, the search for meaning or understanding, moving through obstacles, creating stability through chaos or upheaval, all the fiery energy I have right here. Um, Loneliness, melancholy, healing pain, conscious alignment, and protection. That's why I love pulling these cards at the end because it totally encompasses and wraps up everything that I talk about in a reading. It's beautiful. But this is exactly it. This is exactly the vibe. It really is finding stability through chaos or upheaval. And that's kind of what we're doing. Like our system, our internal system is trying to find ways to regulate itself and to ground itself through this chaos. But there is a lot of melancholy and loneliness and healing of pain. And this is very much Virgo and Pisces access. And like I was talking about with the astrology, there is going to be some healing that transpires. Um, the conscious alignment is very Aquarius. And we have to protect ourselves through some of this uncertainty that's about to unfold. Physically and mentally, energetically, spiritually, protection all around. Um, so a little bit more, this is healing the deep parts within us, or it could be also emerging health concerns. Let's look into that, especially with the dismantling of the CDC. Let's kind of see, because we also have to remember Pisces and Virgo are the healing axis, the healer axis, as well as health. So disease and sickness. Self-reflection. Are you lying to yourself? Lies and manipulation may be afoot. Internal chaos and finding order. Shadow work. A need to find your voice, depression due to lack of self-expression, emotional processing of suppressed emotions, self-advocacy, the search for true meaning, the dark parts of ourselves we do not show to the world. So, I mean, I think that's pretty dead on, honestly, about, a good collective way to summarize some of this. And then we're going to read Brown here. Let's see. Oh yeah, some crystals before I close for the blue. We have blue apatite, lapis lazuli, and we have satellite. Here's my satellite here. Um, all right, so let's go to brown. Here we go. All right, so brown. Rooted connections. This is the Earth Star chakra. So rooted connections, rites of passage, sanctity, greater meanings, symbology, earth rituals, ethics, cycles of time, simplification, going back to nature, connecting with ancestry, detoxing the body. It's very interesting. This is very Virgo, and then this is very much Pisces. So, I think this is kind of cool. So, crystals are petrified wood, jasper, tiger's iron. I think this is too, like, we like the simplification of stability. The cycles of time, the changing of time, we've been talking about the 6 month cycles with the eclipses, but then also like a year-long cycle of the last time we had Neptune and Saturn and Pisces, Neptune and Saturn and Pisces, and how, this kind of got us a little bit in a collective, shuffle last year and what time has taught us. Some people really need, I mean, astrology is all cycles, it's all patterns and connections. And when you know that, you can understand where things are going. The same with history too. Um, but I think also, we can't forget where we've come from. We had to talk, like connect with our ancestors and really have them download some courage inside of us. And I was kind of talking about that too, of like how our ancestors, our family have gone through moments of chaos and collective chaos like this before. Saturn is the planet connected to this card. So stepping out of technological confines, like getting off of your phone, embracing things in person, embracing community in person, being present in the body and connecting your energy to the earth, grounding yourself, resting in the moment, neutralizing your thoughts, looking at the microcosm and the bigger picture, origin or starting points, returning to simplicity. Have you complicated your life? Are you prone to materialism to avoid facing your deep internal thoughts and feelings? Indigenous practices and self-sustainment. Avoid artificial electromagnetic free radicals. Harnessing your body's own biofields. Reminding us of the cycles of time in modernity versus tradition. So I think all those are valid and good, and that's kind of what we need to kind of call back to. Um, and just remembering what is important. We're moving through, we're in the sign of Virgo, we're in Earth, and then we'll go to Libra. But I think this seems very, very Virgo oriented, but the Libra aspect of September is all the, relational changes and shifts and the working together, the teamwork, and also like finding your own power and doing something with it and inspiring others. But I think there is some simplification. And how can we, like I said, maybe we're just going to focus on stability within our bank account, stability within, food, making sure we have that on the table instead of buying, unnecessary things that really won't help with our survival. And is, simplifying. It's like, let's get off of our phone and let's, sit by a tree and read a book, dive into a fantasy novel, so that we can find a sense of peace outside of the technological craziness. But let's come back to our center in September. Let's breathe, do some breathing exercises. let's try to simplify, let's connect more of our crystals. I think we all need some smoky quartz to like ground ourselves, but when we ground the roots, we can connect to the higher chakras. So we have our satellite here, our blue and our brown. But that's the reading for September. That's the forecast. I know it's a lot. It's heavy. You can feel it. You can feel like the electricity, but I think this is where we are. And um, I hope that, you stay inspired. I hope you stay grounded too, this next month. So thank you for tuning in. And, of course, everything's going to be on my Substack, all the pictures of the cards, where I bought the decks. I don't gatekeep. If there's something that you like, I definitely will let you know where it's from. There's going to be, some playlist available for my Spotify. So check out those Zodiac playlist, and then charts and all the transit dates. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure as always. And if you want a personal reading with me, I am back for readings. I took a 2-month break and my books are open again. I think I have my books on my dates until November. So check out my calendar if you want a personal reading. I also have 20% off all the Lenormand readings right now. I was recently published in the Llewellyn's Magical Almanac for 2026, where I wrote about my journey with the Lenormand and how it connected with my Jupiter return almost 10 years ago, which is crazy, or 12 years ago, which is crazy to believe. So check that out, and there's links if you want to purchase the almanac. It's really good and it's awesome. The calendars in there are awesome and will be very important for you to keep track of things for next year. But yeah, book a reading with me. Thank you for checking this out, and I will see you next month. Bye.